Welcome to Figure Out Your Life podcast, the podcast where we try to find the answers to life's everyday questions. I'm your host, Toya T, aka Toya T, PhD, aka Dr. T, aka Professor T, aka Doctor in the front, PhD in the back of my names. As if you're nasty. No, let me stop. All right, so welcome back, everybody. I am so happy to still be here. Another week, another day, still breathing. Everyone is good over here, personally. A couple of updates before we get into today's episode. So, what's been going on in the world? Or at least my sphere of the world. Well, there were some riots in Boston after a peaceful protest. There's been a couple of peaceful protests that were happening, and I've been considering going, but here's my issue. I do not want to put myself at risk to get the Rona. I hate to say it. I hate to put that out there. I completely applaud those who are going out to these protests, going out to these peaceful rallies. But when I look at the videos, there's just too many people close to each other for me. So I think I'm just going to wait on doing that. Although the protests have been successful in getting the 4 officers that were involved in the murder of George Floyd and getting them charged. So that is great. And also getting the main officer, having his charges upgraded from 3rd-degree murder to 2nd-degree murder. So that is absolutely wonderful. I'm so happy that that has been successful. For me, I have pretty much been trying to put out as much information as possible for those who follow me so that they can stay safe, so they can stay informed. And I've also donated to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and I plan to donate more to some of these other bail funds and freedom funds that I have been made aware of. So that is how I am helping. But I did mention there was riots in Boston, and that came at the very tail end of things. And it was just very surprising to see that kind of stuff happen in my own city. Not like that I didn't know that it had the potential to happen. But on Tuesday, I actually went into Boston for the first time in months, because I live in the suburbs. I live south of Boston in the suburbs. And I have not gone into my hometown since mid-March when they, started to close down the city and the state for the Rona, right? So for the first time I went in there, and it was just so weird to drive into the city. One, I had driven on the highway in a long ass time. So I was like, damn, I don't think I remember how to drive on the highway. But 2, it was just kind of like, to be able to see some of the stores that got vandalized and looted up close and some of the damage just made it a little bit more real for me. So I'm happy I did that. But the main purpose for me going in was not just for me to go in and look at the damage and see how the city's doing, but to patronize a Black-owned wine store that was vandalized during the riots that happened at the end of the peaceful protests. It's called the Urban Grape. It's the first Black-owned wine store in Boston. It's been there for 10 years. I only knew about it the last 2 years, and I had been meaning to keep supporting them because they were offering, pickup, and you can also have it delivered. But I live outside the city, so it just seemed a bit inconvenient for me. But because they got affected, I decided, you know what, let me go and support them and show them some support. So I ordered 2 bottles of wine that happened to be Black-owned wine companies. I'm happy that I did that. I bought a bottle of Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. It's a red wine. Absolutely delicious. It's the one I've been drinking. And I also bought what was the other one that I bought? I think I bought the OPP Rosé. But if you are interested, I'll post it on my Instagram and probably on my blog. Also, Blackout Tuesday, hashtag Blackout Tuesday was a thing. I'm not quite sure if it achieved what it was supposed to achieve, because from reading from other people who have been really interrogating it, we don't even know who organized it. So it turns out that it first started off with 2 women allegedly, because I don't know if they identified them, the music industry that was calling for the music industry to stop business as usual. That's what they said, and to put up these blacked out posts on your social media. And it turned into something that got a little bit construed, because what happened is that someone picked up on it, spread it around, said Blackout Tuesday, everyone's going to post a black post on their social media accounts and post nothing else, which when you start thinking about it is very much against the movement, because you don't want to silence black voices. You don't want to say, hey, we are just going to black out the whole entire thing. Like, if you're going to do that, there should be information also included in it. And the other problem was that people were tagging hashtag Black Lives Matter, which became a problem because the hashtag in itself has been used to spread information about different protests and marches and resources related to Black Lives Matter, the organization, and their chapters across the country, across the world. And when people were using the hashtag, it blacked out their whole entire hashtag, which prevented people from being able to get information. So they were asking people to take that out and only hashtag Blackout Tuesday. I'm happy that I saw that before I put Black Lives Matter on there. I had just only put hashtag Blackout Tuesday. I don't know if it was successful, but I definitely did appreciate some of the stuff that did come out. I was able to share a lot of resources around the marches and the protests and systematic racism, and different resources on where to donate, what to do. So that's how I used Blackout Tuesday. But I don't know if overall it was a success. But for me, I feel like I did the best that I could on Blackout Tuesday. Anyway, let's get into this week's episode. And as you can already tell from the title, we will be discussing how to cope with racial trauma and stress, given the recent events occurring in the U.S. with the Rona disproportionately impacting Black communities, and the wrongful death of Ahmaud Arbery caused by the father-son racist duo in Georgia, and the murders of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Tony McCade, and countless others at the hands of police officers. I thought I would do an episode on racial trauma and how to deal with it. But before we begin, we need to define racial trauma. So I got this information from an article that was in American Psychologist, which is the official journal of the American Psychological Association. They say that racial trauma, or race-based stress, refers to people of color's reactions to dangerous events and perceived experiences of racism, discrimination, and microaggressions, and other experiences including threats of harm and injury, humiliating and shaming events, and witnessing racial discrimination or violence against another person of color. Racial trauma involves ongoing individual and collective injuries due to exposure and re-exposure to race-based stress. Many people of color, Indigenous peoples, Latinos, and Asians experience and significantly suffer from racial trauma, but Black people are more exposed to racism and discrimination than any other ethnic or racial group. On top of this, intersectional identities such as class, sexual orientation, gender identity, and nationality and citizenship status or immigrant status contribute to the cumulative effects of racial trauma. So, for example, if you are Black and gay, you are Black and trans, you're Hispanic and trans, you are a Black immigrant in the United States, or you are a undocumented Asian person. All these things have a cumulative effect with racial trauma that people experience. Racial trauma carries psychological and physiological effects, such as hypervigilance to threat, flashbacks, nightmares, avoidance, suspiciousness, headaches, heart palpitations. All these things are similar to PTSD, except in racial trauma, what is unique about racial trauma is that the trauma is ongoing. So like I said before, racial trauma involves ongoing individual and collective injuries. That is how it is separated from PTSD. So in the body, it's experienced the same way. It's similar to PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. but the emphasis is post, meaning that it's trauma that you experience after the traumatic experience. And for racial trauma, it's different because it is ongoing, because you get exposed and then re-exposed to the trauma that causes the stress. And when talking about this, we all know that everyone reacts differently to difficult situations. Understanding how stress impacts you can help you manage it. Racial trauma or race-based stress, especially during a pandemic, the added stress might lead to unhealthy outcomes, such as changes in sleep or eating patterns, trouble concentrating, worsening of chronic health conditions, and increased use of alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs. Over time, racial trauma can lead to long-lasting injuries. Now, keep note here. This is why it's important to talk about this and to learn how to cope with racial trauma because of these long-lasting effects that I'm about to talk about. Research has found association of parental trauma with epigenetic alterations in both the parent and the offspring. In other words, individual racial trauma that is experienced by a parent can turn into intergenerational racial trauma that you can pass down. This is something that affects the body so much that when a person reproduces, it gets into their genes and their offspring get it. And if you don't deal with it, those offspring will experience it without actually experiencing the initial trauma, and they will pass it on to their next generation. That's why we constantly talk about how slavery has a long-lasting legacy on Black people around the world who have experienced it, not just in America, but in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, anywhere where there was slavery, that it has had these long-lasting effects in people way past when slavery was abolished. That's why it's so important to deal with it, because this trauma can stay with an individual from birth to death, your entire life, and then pass on to your next generation and stay with them for their entire lives. So in the midst of the death, outrage, protests, riots, and responses from the peanut gallery in the White House, and on top of the global pandemic, my question is, how can you find a way to cope with racial trauma and stress? So here's what I did. I have put together 10 ways to cope with racial trauma and stress. Now that we understand what it is, why it's important that we deal with it, I'm going to give you 10 ways to deal with this stress. Starting off with number 1, unfollow. So we need to normalize the practice of unfriending and unfollowing people who are against equality for all, including your favorite celebrities. Okay, no one is safe. If they show that they don't care about you, you should unfollow them. For example, I completely unfollowed Kanye West, and I am no longer a fan. I feel like he could, just like how he had a turn, just how like he started off with George Bush doesn't care about Black people, and then all of a sudden went into his MAGA hat, gives him superpowers, and he's going to vote for Donald Trump. I feel like he does have the potential to turn around. He created good music, but as a person, I've unfollowed him. And so even your favorite celebrities can be unfollowed. No one is above reproach. And so if they show that they don't care about you, you should unfollow them to decrease that stress. 2, mute. Make it a practice to mute the social media posts of people or pages that share videos, images of hate crimes or violence against Black people. I'll tell you right now, I do not want to see it. I don't want to see it. I'm not looking at it. The last video I saw of racial violence in its entirety was the murder of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald in 2014 by a white Chicago police officer. After that, I was done. I watched it while I was in my office. I remember it vividly. I was watching it while I was prepping for my social inequality class I was teaching that year. And I cried. I was angry. I didn't know what to do. And I completely scrapped the lecture that I was going to do the next day. I was so fed up. I walked in. I think I was wearing all black. I put on the video of Laquan McDonald being killed for them to watch. And then I put up a PowerPoint that's asked some questions about power and how power can be abused, and particularly by the police officers that were involved in the murder of this young man, that I said that could have been my brother, could very much be one of my cousins, one of my play nephews, anybody in my life. And I cannot stand here and act like I'm not affected by it. And I put up several statements that were related to race in the United States, and I had them stand in certain corners of whether they agreed with the statement or disagreed with the statement. And then I made them explain to me why they stood where they stood. I was not playing. I was like, if you want to report me, go ahead. And I was like, if you want to report me, go ahead, because I ain't playing. I was ready to get fired. I was so done. But from that, I just could not watch it anymore. It just hurt my soul so much. So I did not watch the video of George Floyd being killed. I did not watch the 8 minutes of his life draining out his body and him calling out for his mama. I read about it, but I didn't watch the video. My mother watched it. I was like, I don't know why you did, but maybe she needed to watch it. I cannot watch these things anymore. I do not support trauma porn. I'm done. I don't need to see it. I understand Black pain, and the way that I'm built, I know that I cannot continuously take in those images, because as I just pointed out about racial trauma and how you get re-exposed, I don't need the re-exposure. Okay. It's enough to read about it. The pictures that were posted were more than I needed to see, because I saw when he was alive and I saw when he was clearly dead or dying. And that was too much for me. So if you're like me, or if you're just getting flooded with these images and these posts, and it's starting to affect you psychologically and physiologically, just mute them like I do. 3, pick your battle. Decide whether it's worth the time and energy to argue your feelings to people who are wrong and strong in their views of Black people, and who may dismiss your humanity or experiences. I'm telling you right now, do not argue with a Trumper. Do not do it unless they have caught you on the right day. If you got the time and the energy, and you feel like you are Superman or Superwoman, and you got your armor on, your superpowers are all charged up, go ahead and do it. There's some people on the internet have caught me on the right day when I've had to go full out on them. But if it's not the right day, then report and block these people. Trust me, it's so much simpler and easier. Report them to wherever you're reading this post that just upsets you, this comment that upsets you. Just report them and then delete it if it's on your page. If it's not on your page, just report them and then move on. I started doing that after someone commented on one of my YouTube videos, right? And he pretty much said, honestly, I don't see Black people as human beings. I said, okay, so there is no talking to this person who watched a whole video of me, a Black person, and then decided to comment on it and tell me virtually to my face that he didn't see me as a human being. And so anything that happens to me, he doesn't really care about, which is funny, because I swear to God, white people love themselves some dogs. I don't know about cats, but definitely dogs. And so the fact that he said he didn't see me as human, and he might as well have said that he saw Black people as lower than dogs, because white people will freaking put you under the jail for mistreating a dog. But mistreating a Black person, I don't care. So after that, I realized that it was not worth my time and energy to engage with people that did not see my humanity or care about my experiences. I just started blocking these people if they end up on any of my social media platforms. And particularly the good thing about YouTube is that you can actually put a filter on your comments that say if they see any offensive language, they will flag it and then allow you to read the comment and decide whether or not you want to report and delete, or if you want to allow it. Because sometimes the words, it's a computer, so they may catch something and it may not be offensive, but most of the time it's offensive. Trust me. So just do that. Number 4, disconnect. It is okay to take a break from social media. It is okay. And this is from someone who wakes up in the morning and goes straight on her Instagram, because I'm trying to build a brand. I'm trying to build my podcast following. And so it's important for me to be on these platforms, especially the ones that I know that are used by a lot of people. Instagram is my place. It's where I do very well. And so I'm on there quite often, commenting liking posts, posting, talking to people, friending people, like doing a lot of the work. But I do know that sometimes I just have to take a break. There has been days when I'm just like, I can't do it. I'm just going to post and just get off, or I'm not going to post at all. I'm just going to avoid it. And you just have to know that it's okay to disconnect, even if it's during trying times like now where you feel like you need to say something. You don't have to say anything. You really don't. If you're not feeling it, if you need time to calm your spirit, to process your feelings, or to plan your next action, just do it. Disengage, disconnect from social media a day, a couple days, a month. Just delete the thing off your phone or wherever you usually access it. I know for me that Twitter is a big trigger for me, even though I have blocked anyone who doesn't follow me from being able to comment back to me, which was a huge thing. I learned that the hard way, where I was trying to give my opinion on different things that I was reading on Twitter, and I would just get all these blatant racists coming at me who don't know nothing about me, talking about, oh, you on welfare, oh, blah, blah, blah. I was just like, I can't deal with that. So for me, I know that when I don't want to deal with the shits, I just don't go on Twitter. Especially when I start looking, I'm like, oh, no, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. I follow Maxine Waters. Woo, that's one of the worst places to go look. She says stuff and all of the Trumpers just come at her constantly. I don't know if she does her own social media, but if she does, whoo, God bless her, because I don't know how she does it. Every time I look at people's comments on her page, it just makes my blood boil. So I know for me, when I'm just not with it, I just do not go on Twitter. That is just not the place for me, especially when I have a better control of my Instagram and my Facebook and what I see on those things. That's what I do. So if you need to disconnect from social media, because it can flood you. The whole point of social media is the fact that you can get information constantly at your fingers, anytime, anywhere. And that can be a lot. So disconnect if you need to. Number 5, surround and drown with love. Now, where did I get this from? Surround and drown is actually a firefighter term that I got from Survivor player and winner Jeremy Collins. He's also from the Boston area. He's a Black firefighter. He had mentioned it as a tactic that he used, where you surround and drown something for the game of Survivor. He's talking about for firefighters, when there's a fire that's going out of control and you're trying to figure out how best to put out the fire, what firefighters do is that they surround it completely, and then they drown it with water to get the fire out. And for dealing with racial trauma, the first thing that popped in my head when I started thinking about this was surround and drown with love. Surround yourself physically and virtually, since we're in a pandemic and we can't necessarily be close to our friends and our family like we used to be. Surround yourself physically and virtually with people who care about Black lives, and particularly your life. Connect with loved ones, even if you can't be near them. Eat dinner or watch your favorite shows over video chat so you can feel like you're together. And a couple sources on how you can do that. You can do that on FaceTime. You can do that on Google Chat, Zoom. Facebook now has an option where you can watch things together, like plan out watch parties. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe I will for something, significant, maybe the finale of Insecure. You can use House Party, the app. There's a lot of different ways to do this. So this is definitely something that is an option, whether you're dealing with racial trauma and stress or not, just to keep connected to your loved ones. Those are good ways to do so. Surrounding yourself with people who show in their actions that they care about your well-being and support you helps drown the bullshit of this world. Drown it out with love. Surround and drown out racial trauma with love as much as you can. 6, create joy. Proactively cultivate joy in your life daily. Create a list of personal self-care activities that you enjoy, such as playing Animal Crossing, or for me, Pokemon Go, coloring, or reading a book. This can help you recharge and spark some joy. Shout out to Marie Kondo. I personally try to find a way to laugh every day. I mean, you guys have heard me laugh several times. I start off this whole podcast laughing at myself every single episode. Laughing now. Because I enjoy laughing. It sparks joy in me. It makes me happy. I like to either joke with my family or friends. And one of my brother friends, Jamoki, he hates that every time when he calls me, I'm laughing. Like, he'll call me and I'll just start laughing like, hey, Jamoke. And he hates it. And we've talked about this. He's like, I'm going to stop calling you. And I told him I do this because I'm just so tickled by him calling me on the phone in the age of texting. And he explained, if I feel like I need to talk to you about something that would take too long to text, or I just want to catch up, like, I'll just call you. And I was like, I actually do appreciate it. I do appreciate that he calls me. And every time he calls me, I pick up the phone. And we have like a significant long conversation. It's usually like 30 minutes to an hour we're talking. And there's no lulls in the conversation. There's no awkward parts of it. And that's why I love talking to him. And even if I'm alone, I will do something stupid to make myself laugh. For example, what I like doing sometimes when I'm going to the bathroom, even if no one's home, I will hammer dance from my bedroom through the hallway all the way to the bathroom. It's not that long, but I will hammer dance to the bathroom, and I find it funny every single time. Mainly for the fact that when I do it, I'm not thinking of MC Hammer when I do it. I'm thinking of a crab on a beach. Like a sand crab. And so I sand crab my way. I'll even do like the arms. My arms will be like a crab. It's just funny because I'm a Cancer and the crab is the sign of my zodiac. So I'll hammer dance my way to the bathroom and laugh every single time. So whatever creates joy for you, I definitely suggest that you try to do that daily. Make a list and make sure you engage in some self-care activities every single day as a way to combat racial trauma and stress. 7, find balance between speaking up for yourself and letting people do their own work. As an educator, personally, my natural inclination is to teach folks things that I think that they don't know when I am faced with ignorance or stupidity. It's from years of teaching. I cannot help it. Even if I'm not engaged in the conversation, if I hear something like, ooh, no, that's not right. But here's the thing, that can be very taxing. But it's usually the way that I speak up for myself, especially when someone is saying something that I find offensive, either about me, about other Black people, or even other ethnic and racial groups. I will speak up. I speak up quite often when I hear people say things about Native Americans or Indigenous people, because I did a lot of research when I was teaching race and ethnic relations the last couple of years. And the stuff that I have learned from teaching it emboldens me to speak up when someone says something. It's like, no, that's not right. No, you should not be wearing a quote unquote Indian costume. You should not be having a Cowboys and Indians party for your 1-year-old. They're not going to remember it and it's offensive. Just don't do it. There are other things you can do. You could just have a Cowboys party, but don't put people on as a costume. You wouldn't like it if they had a blackface party for someone's 1-year-old party, a whiteface and blackface party. Yeah. Or a slave and master party. You wouldn't like that. So I usually speak up on that, but sometimes it's just too much. And I've told some people, I get paid to teach, and sometimes I'll read you for free, but if I have to give you a full-on lecture, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay me. Pay me. And I got PayPal, I got Cash App, and I got Venmo now. So you can send me the money and I will give you a full on prepared lecture. But if you ain't trying to do that and this is on social media, no. You have to allow people to do their own work because you can't do it for them. As I used to tell my students, I can't learn this information for you. I can't take the exam for you. None of that stuff. It's my job to help you understand the information, but I can't learn it for you. And in the cases of things related to race and equality, equity, racial justice, people are going to have to do the work themselves. If you want a suggestion of where to go, I'm happy to help you. I have the experience and I will pull out the resources and the citations. But again, you got to let the people do their own work. Number 8. Take care of your body. I already pointed out at the beginning of this podcast that racial trauma and stress not only has psychological effects, but physiological effects, on top of the fact that stress in itself has its own effects. So heart palpitations, headaches. What else did I say? Changes in your sleep patterns, your eating patterns, so you're gaining weight, you're not sleeping, your hair might fall out. So if you are someone who you break out or your hair falls out when you get stressed. You might have problems concentrating. You might have worsening of your own chronic health conditions. So maybe your asthma starts acting up or your blood pressure starts going through the roof, and now you need to get a higher dose of your medication, or you stroke out, which happens. Remember the daughter of Erica Garner? That young woman died at an early age because of all the stress of, one, seeing her father die, with the posts, like having her father's murder be videotaped, and then having the people who murdered him, the cops, not be punished, and then all the work she was doing to kind of spread information about racial justice and fighting for racial justice. That young woman died an early death. And you can't say that it wasn't due to racial trauma and stress, because she had no reason to die that early. She had no reason to follow her father into the grave. And so we have to take care of our body. And how do we do so? Take deep breaths. Trust me, breathing always helps. Take some deep breaths. Meditate, exercise regularly, drink water. Definitely drink some water, because dehydration is real. Trust me. Eat healthy foods and meals and get plenty of sleep. These healthy habits can help lessen stress and anxiety. And if you need some help on figuring out how to do so, I found some apps that can help that. If you have an American Express card, they have offered for all their card members a free year of premium access to the Calm app. So I signed up for that because I like free. And I made sure that I put on my calendar for next year when to cancel that thing, because I ain't paying for it. But I definitely picked that up because they had things that involved reducing stress, putting yourself in the right mindset. And also, if you needed help sleeping or meditating, they have prompts for that and people talking you through it. I also learned about a similar app that is actually Black owned, that is called the Liberate app. Again, all this stuff will be in the show notes. So if you want to hear a Black woman, like me, if you want to hear a Black woman helping you through meditation and actually also speaking to you on how to put yourself in the right mindset, how to sleep better, and all these different wellness prompts, try the Liberate app. I downloaded it today. It's free, and see which one works best for you. Also, you might want to avoid abusing alcohol, tobacco, and drugs as a way to cope. I'm not saying that you can't take it. If you're a smoker, don't increase your smoking. That's all I'm saying right there. If you regularly have a glass of wine or a glass of spirits of any kind, whiskey, rum, gin, whatever you usually take, just don't increase it. Take it in moderation. Don't use it as a coping mechanism. But I will say for myself, trust me, one edible a day can change your whole mood. Number 9, be creative. Switching your focus for a while does not mean you don't care. If racial trauma has left you with emotions, thoughts, and feelings that you do not know what to do with, try getting it out in song, poem, dance, meme, GIF, opinion piece, TikTok, vlog, Snapchat, drawing, research article, book. Get it out and share it, because you may be surprised how it may help other people. I think some of the best work comes through the release of extreme emotions. So like when people say that Mary J. Blige and Adele make their best music when they're going through heartache, that's because that's an extreme emotion. Heartbreak is an extreme emotion. They put out something, they're releasing it. Like if you're listening to protest music, the music that's come out of some of these things have been just really powerful, lasting pieces of work that I feel comes from the fact that they're the release of strong emotion. So if you're feeling it, try to put it into something. Anything that you can do is helpful. Number 10, last but not least, reach out to healthcare providers. If you or someone you care about is feeling overwhelmed with emotions, or if stress gets in the way of your daily activities for several days in a row, contact a healthcare provider or make use of the following mental health resources that are being provided virtually to support those in the Black community and those who are also affected. These are some virtual resources that are providing support for the Black community right now. Dive In Well, CISFA Sisfa Afye, Therapy for Black Girls, the NAP Ministry, Inclusive Therapist, Heal House, Ethel's Club, Harriet's Apothecary, the Unplugged Collective, Beam Collective, and Black Girl in Ohm. And again, all these resources will be in the show notes so that you have an easy way to access them. But with all that said, I am done with this section. I hope you guys found it helpful, and please share it with others that might find it helpful also. All right, let's move on to the last section, which is Figure This Out. And I got quite a bit of stuff to get off of my chest. So here's one thing that you can figure out for me. I've seen quite a few people that had signs directed towards white women who are involved with or constantly date Black men. And it says, if you can open your mouth for Black dicks, why can't you open your mouths to speak out on Black issues? And the first people that I thought of course, were the Kardashian Jenners, mainly for the fact that they have been very silent recently, which I don't understand. So figure this out for me. Why have they been so silent? Someone else had asked this question and I said, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if they're being silent because they're trying to not pull attention to themselves, since Forbes had just outed their family for lying about Kylie's net worth and her not being a real billionaire. I don't know if they're just trying to let the news story die so they're not saying anything so people won't bring that back up at them. That was my guess, but I don't know. You let me know. Like, how are they silent when the majority of their family, their immediate family, is mixed race Black children and vultures of Black culture and Black men who have wandered into the desert of thirst traps and Black fishing white girls? Their family is filled with it, from the matriarch all the way down to the youngest member of the family. Why are y'all silent? Is this because that you're planning to use it as a storyline of next season's Keeping Up with the Kardashians? Is the main storyline for next season like hashtag Black Lives Matter? That's my Kim voice. But I don't understand it. I don't understand why they've been so silent. And I'm someone who is just a full-on critic. I'm not a hater. Those children are beautiful. Okay. I don't have anything against the children, and I don't have anything against them when they actually do something that is worthy of praise. Like Kim helping fund the Black female attorneys that actually got out people who have been wrongly incarcerated or have been overly charged for their crimes. I'm all for it. Go ahead, Kim. Give your money and your celebrity and your platform to bringing light to these issues and supporting these Black women that were working before you got there, and giving them the funds to be able to do the work and still take care of themselves and their families. Go ahead, girl. I completely appreciate it. But I am a hypercritical of them as a group because outside of these one or two things that they do, they don't use their platforms for good. They do not. They don't use their platforms for good. You have Black children, most of you, except for Courtney. You have Black children. You sleep with Black men, or you're married to Black men. Why aren't you saying things that would try to encourage your large followings to do something, to be informed, to spread the word among their family and their friends? That's how change comes about, by people sharing information, educating each other. But that doesn't seem to be a priority for them. And I don't know why they've been so quiet right now. And it's not because that they have decided to disconnect from social media, because they're still quite active. Like, for example, when Kylie found out that Forbes had outed her as not being a billionaire, and she's like, why are you doing this right now? Like, there's so many other things that are more important. And I was hoping that she would say, such as the murder of George Floyd, or the murder of Breonna Taylor, or just anything. The murder of Tony McCade, the trans man in Tallahassee, Florida. I was hoping that she would just give them examples of what was more important than outing her as being a non-billionaire. Like, that's not important, but this is important. But she didn't do that. Why would she do that? I mean, I would hope that as the mother of a Black child, she would want to do that, but I guess not. I guess it wasn't important enough. So what was more important than speaking out against Forbes outing you as not being a billionaire? Let me know. What was more important? You just saying something or nothing? So that was one thing I can't figure out. Let me know if you can figure that out for me. Another thing, what is it about money that makes people forget where they came from and what they have experienced? I'm particularly talking about Black celebrities that have been openly criticizing the protesters, particularly when it turns to rioting or looting. Although it has been shown that a lot of the violence that has occurred at these protests that start off peaceful have come from outside agitators, and some of them have been white nationalists or undercover white cops that are trying to put a negative mark on these protests so that they can justify why they need to be shut down. And so it's just interesting. For example, the rapper Trina, the baddest chick, or the baddest bitch, as she calls herself, the Diamond Princess, and The Dream, the producer and singer, super producer and singer, who seem to be putting things before people. So Trina recently was on a radio show in Florida with Trick Daddy and was calling people who were protesting, and particularly those who may have looted her friend's place. She called them animals. She just called these protesters animals. She said they should have a curfew from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. so that they keep these animals in the house because they acting like they have escaped from the zoo and they don't know what to do with themselves. And she tried to use the example of her friend having a store in one of these malls in the Miami area and how it got looted and broken into and how this woman needs to, be able to take care of her family. And I was surprised when Trick Daddy who's usually the king of ignorance, was trying to set her straight and was actually right and said, well, doesn't your friend have insurance? Because in order to have a business, especially in a mall, you would think that she would have insurance. And Trina said, yeah, she does have insurance, but that doesn't mean nothing. And I was like, well, all I was thinking was like, girl, if you're so concerned, go ahead and use some of your funds and help to rebuild your friend's store if you're so mad about it. And she tried to bring Trick over to her side by saying, well, if anyone did that to your restaurant, you'd be upset. And he said straight out to her, nah, I'm cool because I understand why these people are mad and I have insurance. The insurance will pay to rebuild your business. And if you're someone who understands that things can be replaced, but people can't be. And she kept saying like, well, you can't bring people's lives back, which is where she was contradicting herself. And it's like, okay, girl, you're mad about your friend's store. And then you're also mad about the fact that people have died and can't come back, like her little brother that was killed by another Black man. She was trying to equate it all together. And it was like, girlfriend, you just said it, but you're not understanding what you just said. You can replace things. Insurance is there for people to replace things. GoFundMe and all these other crowdfunding sources are there to help people rebuild things. Like the Urban Grape wine store in Boston, they straight up told people who had asked, like, is there a fund that we can donate to help you rebuild? And they said, no, we have insurance. The best thing that you can do is to continue to buy things from us because we're still open. We have boarded up the windows, but we're still open. And the best way that you can support us is by supporting our business. And that's what people can do to help these businesses get back on their feet. But you cannot do that for human life. You cannot breathe life back into a human being. If they're dead, they're gone, and that's it. That's why I said that celebrities that you follow, you can unfollow them if they show their asses, if they show that their money has become so important to them that it makes them forget where they came from and the fact that they got this money from people who supported them, that most of them did not come from these wealthy backgrounds, these places where they can say, well, I was in this bubble, I was very much sheltered. No, like for Trina, she came from Liberty City, Miami, which is the hood. Okay, not your Miami Beach, but the real Miami. And so I don't understand how she's like completely forgotten where she came from. And she tried to give an apology after the fact. But the day she was speaking on her radio show, she said, I know what I'm saying. I'm a grown ass woman, because Trick Daddy was trying to tell her, like, maybe you don't want to say this. You might want to think about what you say before you say it. And she said, no, I know I can say what I want to say. And she was talking over him. And it's like, oh my gosh. And she wasn't the only one. The Dream also pointed out that he has plenty of properties and stores and businesses in Atlanta. So please, stop looting and stop rioting and stop doing all this. And it's like, dude, you are also very rich. and you definitely have insurance, your insurance will cover this thing, and you're not going to be falling on hard times because your businesses were destroyed during a protest that turned violent or turned into rioting, because you make most of your money from your music residuals. You're fine. You're talking about you're trying to set up your kids to be fine, and people destroying your properties are affecting your children. No, they're not. Your children are fine. They're in your mansion or their mama's mansion that you're paying for, helping pay for. They're still getting their private school education, and you are still getting your royalty checks from all these major songs that you helped produce and write. Do not tell me that you're not still making money off of Justin Bieber's Baby and Beyonce's Single Ladies, just to name two major hits by him that he's definitely still getting the royalties on. Shut up. Shut up. Things can be replaced, not people. And so if you can tell me, why is it that people allow money to make them forget where they came from and what they have experienced, or the fact that they're a person of color, and that if they ended up on the street, they would get their asses beat down by the cops because they would not care that you are the Dream or you are Trina. I mean, Trina herself had an incident in Walmart where she said that this woman called her a nigger. And it's like, hello. She didn't care that she was Trina the baddest bitch. She just saw her as another black woman or another nigga. That just shows you your money doesn't stop you from experiencing racism. I mean, we all know that the Obamas, at the highest of the heights, as the leader of the free world, as the first family of this country, they experience constant racist attacks against them. People putting up effigies of Obama and burning it or hanging it. People calling Michelle Obama a monkey and an ape. Come on. We all know that money and fame does not protect you in this world where we have tons of anti-black racism. It doesn't make no sense to me. Okay. But if you can explain to me better why this is happening, if you figured it out, go ahead and let me know. And with that, I am done. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was something that I'm very happy that I was able to put together. I hope it was helpful. If you enjoyed this, please do me a favor and share with one other person, maybe 3, because that's my favorite number. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to this so that you will get this podcast when it comes out. Also, if you have not done so, please go rate and review this podcast wherever you are listening to it. It helps. Trust me, I'm trying to grow this brand. It is something that I am passionate about, and I really do want us to grow as a group. So please help me out by doing so. And with that, I just want to wish you guys a very blessed morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whatever time it is. I just want you to stay safe, continue to wash your hands, and speak out against racial injustice. And I will talk to you guys next week. All right, bye.